All right, cool. How you doing, Shannon?
Good, how are you?
Good, bro. All right, so this is workshop number 7. We're going to talk about the marks of a great bassist. So anybody who's doing worship bass, here is the important things to keep in mind, to be able to do, to have locked in and ready to go so that you can do a great job serving bass and playing bass. And for context for the video, we got one guy in here, Shannon Gray, faithful, proud, ready to serve. But everybody who's watching online, be sure to look down in the comments section, in the description box actually. I've got this document that we're going to be working through. Check that out. Make sure that you can go through that with us. These are super important, and I want to make sure that you can apply these to your bass playing. Also, you'd probably notice I'm pretty congested. I've been sick, but we're going to get through it, so here we go. Depending on wherever you are going into and playing bass, this is a super fundamental thing to keep in mind. Playing bass, whether it's junior high, high school, main service, whatever, just a band you're hanging out. As a bassist, your mentality is low end. Your mentality is, how can I fill up the space to give it a good feel and good push when you're playing bass for worship? And so we're going to talk about that, and there's a lot of different elements that make that good. And obviously there's opposites to each of these points that we're going to talk about that can ruin the sound of the band and just make it distracting if you don't apply it well. All right, so the first skill, let me number these really quick. The first skill is, so I'm just going to read through it and then we're going to play through it just for a little bit, is to have control over your tone. Control over your tone is so essential. So many times people come in, they don't know what their knobs are doing, and they just start playing away. Sometimes they might even bring in pedals and don't know what they do and just play away, and it just doesn't sound good, it doesn't fit. And so we're going to talk about tone, the right tone, how to make that happen. Also, control over notes. So when you're playing your bass, making sure that you have a good understanding of where you're going to play, solid rhythm. This is a rhythmic instrument. So like you think of drums, you think of percussion. The bass also is a rhythm instrument, right? You're playing notes, you're playing harmonies, but you're also playing the rhythm, and that's going to be really important. We're going to talk about that too. Solid understanding of fretboard. So when you look down at the bass, obviously there's so many notes, but you can kind of have a good understanding and a good foundation for what is happening, what notes to play, what notes not to play. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. Understanding that you're playing more than just notes. This is super helpful when it comes to a bassist trying to express themselves, right? Because bass oftentimes looks boring, but there's way more that you can do on a bass that makes it so much more fun that we're going to talk about as well. Clear transitions, making sure you're not stopping the note right away, making sure you're fading it out nicely, swelling in, bass drops when you literally stop playing the bass, or versus when you do like a big old bass slide thing. That's gonna be something we'll play through and have fun with. And then the last thing is listening to the band, making sure you're working with each other, understanding how you can fit while other people are doing different things. So how you can fit rhythmically, harmonically, so that being what notes you're playing, adding other notes, tonally, where is your overall tone going to be? Okay, cool. Let's jump into this thing. First one, having control over the tone of your instrument. Okay, so Shannon, you probably don't have too much exposure to this right now, but imagine I started playing bass and it sounded like this. That doesn't sound bad. What if I started doing... Sorry, so this is a synth pedal. It's just crazy pedal. What if I was like, we're getting into like a big chorus and it sounds like this. Right? And when you're thinking of like a big band, it's just like it's not gonna fit. Also your tone, sometimes, if you're not careful, you can have like way too much brights and no bias. Right, and while that sounds good, like it doesn't sound bad by itself, but then you put it in the context of the band, and it's gonna get buried, right? I have some tracks we can play with later But what I'm gonna want is, so I took out all the bass, I took out all the mids, and I brought up the treble. Let me turn down the treble a little bit, add the bass back in. Oh yeah, add the mids back in. Right, and then there's the bass. And that's gonna fit in the sound. So that's something that I could do with pedals. And so when it comes to pedals, I use the Ampeg SCRDI. So Ampeg SCRDI. That's just a pedal that kind of acts like an amp, and it kind of gives it a little bit more character. But most people, they'll come in just with their bass and plug it right in. So that's what this sounds like. And that's just dry, which sounds fine. You can still do some great worship with this, but as you can tell, it sounds pretty dry, right? And then making sure that your knobs, you know what your knobs are doing. So like, this is a J bass, so I've got 2 single coil pickups. These 2 volume knobs control these 2 volumes. A P bass, if you're doing a passive P bass, only has 1 knob and a tone knob. If you do like an Ibanez EMG bass, like some of those guys, or even like jazz basses, active jazz basses, active P basses can have like 5 knobs that are like stacks. So they're like, it's almost like 8 or 9 knobs in one bass. Wait, it's just insane, right? Like what am I gonna do with all of that? This is a pretty simple setup. You can also go to a P bass, which is even more simple. 1 pickup volume and then 1 tone knob. So what the tone knob does is, if I have my 2 volumes all the way up for these 2 pickups, the tone knob, when it's turned all the way on, is essentially just like I'm cutting nothing out. So you hear how there's a lot of brightness. Then if I turn it down, yeah, that's just like, it's just kind of, which that sound, it might not sound as glamorous and as beautiful by itself, but that sound with the tone knob turned all the way down or just barely turned on is actually the sound that works best with the band. Actually works best with because the guitars are doing one thing, the acoustics, the keys are doing totally different things, and if you're working on the, then it's just it's gonna clash with them, right? And so making sure you have an understanding of, okay, I'm gonna turn my tone knob down almost all the way, so you still get a little bit of like string noise, action noise, but then it's pretty much just bottom end beef. Right? And then also you got 2 pickups. This is huge, super important. If you got 2 pickups on your bass, the higher, I don't know if I should consider this higher, maybe, yeah, higher because that's low. The higher up the strings of your bass, the brighter it gets. So this pickup here, it probably, I don't know, I should ask my techie guys if these have the same circuitry, but since this one's higher, it's gonna pick up the brighter frequencies. So like if you listen, so if I play this, listen in. You hear it just like thins out there? The same thing goes for the pickups. This one's gonna naturally be brighter. So if I turn down this pickup and only leave this one on, oh, let me turn on that. Right, it sounds like a, I don't know if that's like 80s or something, but you can like picture that with like a Rhodes, like or whatever. This one is gonna pick up a lot of the warmth. So I'm gonna turn that one up, turn down. So this is your bridge, and this is your neck pickup. Now I'm gonna turn up the neck pickup, turn off the bridge. It's gonna be a lot warmer and bigger. You hear that? Sounds nice, I like it. When you have a P bass, you only have 1 pickup that kind of sits in this neck pickup position. So that one naturally is gonna be warmer. It doesn't really have the jazzy brights, which is the reason why this is a jazz bass. So both of them together now. So you have the beef of the neck and the bright cuttiness of this one. So then now when I turn down my tone knob, so it's almost all the way. That's all the way, and then I'm gonna turn it up just a little bit. I still kind of have a little bit of like bite to it because of the bridge pickup, but then I got all the beef that I need for my neck pickup. So that's something, even as you consider buying a bass, like what kind of pickups it has. EMGs are just like big old blocks that are humbuckers, so they're super powerful and super hot and super dark and warm. But you can crank the brights, get it all slappy and jazzy, or darken it up and make it like really just like big and beefy. The jazz bass, I just love the overall sound. You know what I'm saying? There's like so much groove with this. Also, so this is a side note tangent. The jazz basses have a thinner neck. So the neck here, the strings are closer together, so it's a lot easier to play. The P bass has a wider neck, so it's a lot harder to kind of get around on. But I think that's a characteristic of the P bass. It's just so much bigness that it's just like, you just gotta chill and just how to slow it down. The jazz is just meant to like a little bit more like a guitar, just go a little faster. Ibanez, I haven't played too much on an Ibanez, but I think they're pretty similar to the jazz bass width, so they're pretty easy to play as well. P bass is more of like your worship bass because it just sits in the bottom and it's just good. The J bass, I think, can get too bright if you leave your brights all the way on, and if your neck pickup's off, this, it's just not gonna work. It's just not gonna work for worship as many times as if you properly set it up, turn off your brights. Right, so that's good. Now getting to the pedals that I'm using. For any pedals that anybody's thinking of buying, first I recommend a bass compressor, and then I would say to buy an amp emulator. I think there's like a bass sans amp or something like that. I think those are good pedals that kind of emulate the harmonics that would come out of an amp. Or actually, scratch that. I'm gonna say first a compressor, then I would say a DI is super important. And then an amp emulator. So that's on recording if anybody wants to, if you want to watch that back. A DI, so what I've got on my board is an MXR bass compressor. It's a little white guy. The thing that one does is it picks up a lot of the sustain. So like, say if I'm wanting to make a really big, epic, like deep note, and I just, and then it fades out slowly. What this does is it keeps it big for longer, so I can. So it has a lot more sustain and it'll sit longer in the mix. Otherwise, without it, sometimes it'll die out really fast. But the next thing that I got is my amp emulator Ampeg SCR-DI. And then, so it's also a DI as well, which is cool. But it doesn't have like a tube or anything, I don't think. I think it's just transistors. I think it's just a little circuit board in there. And then, so that's adding a little bit more of the harmonics to some bigness, and then it's upping the mid. So I've got it dialed in for that. Feel that? Yeah, so when I go, Jesus, you alone, Jesus, you alone. Like that just feels so big, right? Holy. You know what I'm saying? Room is shaking, bro. Like that feels so big versus without it. It's like, it's just not doing it as much, which the tech team can work their magic, add a compressor, maybe add some EQ to boost the harmonics. So what a harmonic is when you're playing one note, so like this note open has a certain frequency that's its bass, and then after all that are all the harmonics. So like basically if I brighten the sound of this bass, this has a certain section of harmonics on, like if you had an EQ chart. So an EQ chart shows you the frequencies. And so like, say this is an A, and the A is 440 hertz. And that's like a low frequency, so usually like this side's low, and then it gets higher from your perspective. So like if this is 440, and then I cut out all the brights, I just like took them all out, you would just hear, it would just be like a sine wave, like a synth sounding thing. As I add the harmonics, it sounds brighter. Does that make sense? So like that's basically what I'm saying when I'm saying add harmonics. So that's brighter, that has more harmonics. This Ampeg DI can add more harmonics if I wanted to. If I want to brighten it up. Hear how bright that is? It's not changing the note, it's just adding way more harmonics. It's also adding like a shh. Hear that?
Right.
So I'm going to turn that down a little bit. Add the mid, lower the lows just a pinch. And so I've got kind of a focus on the 440, which is the initial note, and then just a little bit on like the 2.53K range. And then, or actually, like that'll work better for worship. Okay, tone is huge. So making sure that you have the overall idea of what your sound is doing is huge. So that's step number one. Buy a bass if you don't have one that you can understand and learn the knobs. Keep it simple, right? The more knobs, honestly, the more problems, right? It's like money. More money, more problems. So honestly, like a P bass, if it's a P bass with one volume knob and one tone knob, that's honestly all you need. You know, a guy in our church plays bass really, really well, and that's all he has, and it sounds awesome. You don't need to worry about it doing anything weird on you with all the other knobs. If your son gets in there and like, or my son, because he's a baby, or I guess a little boy now, but he can mess you up. That can mess you up. All right, cool. Next thing, clean notes. This is huge. This is so huge. When you're playing bass, so right, like I showed you, Shannon, like the scale, you know. So if it's like Amazing Grace to the 4/2 suite, the back to the 1, saved a wretch like 5, right? If you're playing bass and you accidentally let one ring for too long, it'll sound like this. That kind of sounds good because it's the 5th. But if it's like, or if it's, hear the, or hear the room just, you know, it's like that could really mess up the overall sound. So control over the notes would mean you've got the idea of once you're playing a note, you know, I could just put my one finger here, but what I'm gonna accidentally possibly do is accidentally strum others. So the way that I grab the bass makes it so that if I accidentally strum others, I'm muting them. You know what I'm saying? So like that allows a lot less problems. You know. So like this weekend we're starting with like a after the announcements. Let's see, what was the song? Come behold the wondrous mystery, Christ the Lord upon the tree. Hangs the Lamb in victory. See the price of our redemption. You know, so if like accidentally I had that and I like accidentally strummed the low E, that sounds horrible, right? So see the price of our redemption. Oh, yikes. So you got to make sure that when you practice, you're also practicing muting the others. See the price of our redemption. See the Father's plan unfold. But you see how my hand is naturally just kind of protecting that? Then as you get more busy, so say like you're playing Mighty Fortress. Hoping God, oh my soul, He is strong and He is strong to save. Hoping God, right? You know, or like even we were doing Grace Alone. I was in darkness all of my life. I never knew the day from the night. Did you hear this weekend? I was jamming out, dude. It was so fun. You see. So that requires a lot of control because I'm kind of strumming these two together. But if I'm, you know, like accidentally get others in there, it'll be really messy. So control over other strings, and then control over the string that a specific fret you're playing. So like, this is an E over G sharp. If I was to play it and hold it down, So like if I play that same thing, so I was in darkness, 2, 3, 4. I was in darkness all of my life. Right? It sounds fine, but if I add the silence in there, we're gonna get to this with a later point. Oh, so much groove, right? And then you picture the drums. It's harder than. Right? Like that together is just a groove, just like beyond grooves. So like being aware of that, controlling it, right? To mute it, all you do is just release it just a little bit. And then it's gone. You can mute it just by resting your hands on there. So that's the idea of controlling the other notes, then controlling the specific note that you're playing. Clear notes. Huge. Huge. Also, for anybody watching online, or Shannon, if you need to learn, no, you know this for sure. C sharp is different than C. B is, I guess, different than C, that makes sense. But like E flat, A flat, B flat are all different than E, A, and B. Those are two different notes. Don't ever think that it's okay just to do one instead. There was a chart in A flat, and then somebody was playing an A instead of A flat because they're like, oh, whatever, it's close enough. Dude, oh, could you imagine what that would sound like in the room? So bad, so bad. Don't make that mistake. Okay, solid rhythm. This one's huge. Bass is a rhythmic instrument. Again, I'm gonna beat that horse to death. Beat a dead horse. I don't know this thing. That is super important to remember. Bass is a rhythmic instrument. You can ruin the overall feel just by like forgetting that, or you could just have zero feel. So like, let's see. Man, I didn't want to do this, but I'm gonna do it anyways. If you're playing the song that we played this morning, or let's do Great Things. Great Things is a good example. If you're gonna do Great Things, you know that song? Who doesn't know that song? Yeah. If you're playing Great Things, if I can spell it correctly, nope, it doesn't have a 5 in the name. If you're doing Great Things, you can play the verse 2, or you can like play verse 2. Let me demonstrate what I mean. All right, so I'm playing the recording in B. Oh, it's my loud. Here we go. So like, let me play it, right? Right? I'm playing the notes. I'm also in B. That's fine. But if I wanted to play it, right? Right? Come on. So anyways, that's to make the point of you can play the rhythms and the grooves and feel it out and make it beautiful based off of the way that you rhythmically approach your instrument. Another big thing, solid on the rhythm. So I said this as a granted, but making sure you're playing on the root. Oh man, that kills me when the bassist can't play the beats, because it's like, dude, like say we're playing this instrumental, right? So it's like, oh, just kills it, right? Oh, right? Or even this. It's like, dude. Oh. Right? Like, it hurts me to do that. Like, dude, pocket is key. Pocket is key. And pocket is so fun. So, like, if anyone's practicing, if you feel like you can't nail it, just, like, obsess over, like, getting it just right. You're gonna have so much fun. Like, you know? So, dude, sit in that pocket all day. good bassists that can just sit in the pocket. And it's like, if you're just playing bass, you're not even leading the worship, doing it like I would. Like, you have so much ability to just like groove with the drums, right? That's why drums also have to be like in the pocket. All right, sorry, that was way too long to talk about that. Solid rhythm, play the sound, play without the sound, right? I talked about not doing like, right? Play with the silence, right? That's big. And then like also letting that be in time, right? Like you want to, right? Like feel that, get in the rhythm. Great. Next thing, solid understanding of the fretboard. So this one's big. So I showed you, Shannon, like basic patterns that you can be playing. When you look at this fretboard, this is very daunting and very overwhelming, but I want you to feel the pressure that you should have an overall understanding of what's happening here. But I also want to give you some relief because it's very possible to learn. I didn't know the fretboard at a certain point in time, and I too felt overwhelmed by it. It wasn't until I learned a simple way of approaching the fretboard to learn just a little section at a time. You know, there's a select number of notes that you can play that work, and those fit in the major scale. So like, say if we're in the key B for the sake of that song that we're jamming to, right? I'm gonna play that scale and just have one little section locked in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if I know that we're going to the one chord or like the key, I can forever be locked in. So many times when I was starting, I was trying to learn just the note names, not like where it is in the scale. And like every time you're looking at a new chart, you're like, okay, it says A flat. Here's an A. There's the flat. It takes way too long to learn it that way. Versus getting your scale and knowing, okay, now I'm on the first scale degree. Now I'm on the fourth. Now I'm on the sixth. Right? Like that's why for you it was so quick to pick it up. Right? If somebody's coming in just trying to do the notes, dude, it's such a headache. Such a headache. The next thing is once you have one scale, so if we go back to B, if you have your one scale, jam to that, practice that as much as you can, but then learn it until you're sick of it. Like you're just like, oh, I'm tired of this, I need more. Then find another one, right? Here's B. If you learn the bottom two strings notes, which I recommend, then you'll know this is a B. And then there's your next scale. And then if you do an octave from this bass, from this B, there's another octave. And then if you go here, here's another one. So you've got a lot of ability to, you know, you've been faithful through every storm. You've been faithful forevermore. You know what I'm saying? Like I know like where I can go for a certain sound. You know, like I've got a good understanding of where it is because I've learned that scale here and here and here and here. There. Right? If you learn those, then do the next one, get sick of that one. Do the next one, get sick of that one. But then you learn what each one does, how it sounds, how it fits. You can get crazy and excited about it, and you know, so a solid understanding of the fretboard is huge. This will also go into understanding tone. The tone of the bass right here is different than the tone right here. You hear how much more like warm and like it just sits nicely. This one's a little bit harsher, a little bit more like, eh. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna not here. It's like depending on what I'm going for. If I want to like the song "Oh My Soul Arise," that one's so much fun. So that was the crazy one. That was like whatever. But in the instrumental, it goes. Right? If I wanted to have the sound, I want it aggressive, I want it dirty, you know, I'm gonna do it right here. Not like, this is the kind of melody, you know, versus like a, yeah, exactly. That is huge. Understanding and like it just requires time with the instrument. So getting to know that and then like learning that up here and then learning that out here and then learning that wherever else. If you've got a good understanding of that and like you know how to apply it, dude, that is so huge. This is something also that I wanted to say in the beginning, but I totally forgot about. And this is a key theme that I think you can take into anything in your life, and I'm sure you've even seen it yourself, is it's not what you've got. It's about what you do with what you've got. You like work that in your brain just in like any scenario. It doesn't matter what kind of car, like how many cars you drive. It doesn't matter how amazing the cars are that you drive. You know, it matters how you drive it. Like if you're doing racing, you know, like if you're a good racer and you have the right car, you know how to use it. You can do that. You know, that you can apply it there for bass. It doesn't matter if I have like a gazillion basses with a gazillion knobs. It matters how I use it. Right? It doesn't matter if I have like a huge thing of pedals. It's like it matters how you use it. So like when people are like, I'm buying a new thing, I'm doing that, I'm doing this. You know, it's like it doesn't matter what you do. It matters how you use it, right? If I'm a crazy musician with perfect pitch and I understand music is like whatever, like that's great, but it matters how you use it, right? Like that's where like you're probably not gonna get famous if you don't like write a heartfelt song or like sing this thing that people are like like moved by, right? So getting a simple setup, learning how to use it, getting a simple way of playing, learning how to use it. That's another big thing. I know so many people that shred jazz and shred rock and shred punk or whatever, and it's like, or classical, right? Like people have been playing piano for like 10 years, and it's like, that's amazing. You know, you can play me Interstellar's, you know, theme on the piano, and it's like so like, wow, that's so amazing. And then I'm like, okay, now play worship with me, and they just like have zero clue. It's like horrible, right? It's because they don't know how to use what they've got in the right setting. So if you're gonna do worship, anybody who's watching this or doing worship, learn how to do what you need to do with what you've got, because you can probably do it pretty well. The bass I gave you, it's like a tiny little like junior-sized Squire. Dude, honestly, like if you were to use that one well and put the right strings on it and have the right bass tone set up, and you plugged it directly into the board or whatever, you got like whatever pedal, that can sound great for revival. It's a Squire, it's so cheesy, but like how you use it can sound better than if I had super expensive stuff and doing crazy stuff, like this huge stack of speakers, right? Like that can be more meaningful, more impactful based on how you do it, how you use it. So for anybody who's watching, be inspired that it doesn't matter what you've got. If you've got like $1 billion gazillion dollars, right? Nobody can care for you unless you use those dollars well. You can have 15 bucks, take somebody out to lunch and care for them. And because you have a little bit of money, but you use it well, you can change someone's life. Like the same goes with music. You don't need to be insane. It's how you use it that makes an impact. I'm not a good musician, and when it comes to like playing you whatever, I can just play worship well. That's it. That's all I know how to do. That's literally it. But be excited to know that you don't need a bunch of stuff. You don't need a bunch of skills. Just get something simple, stick to that. Okay, sorry, that was a tangent that I wanted to do in the beginning, but I hope that sits well for whoever's watching it. Like literally, man, that's so important. I wish I knew that early on. Okay, understanding the fretboard, super important. If you don't understand the fretboard well enough, I have lessons that I'm releasing soon on how to play that for bass, how to play it for guitar, how to play it for keys, whatever. Get to learn your instrument's frets or notes well. Learn how to use them. That's huge. Okay, more than just playing the notes. Yeah, let's go back to Great Things' second verse. Listen to how I'm playing it, ready? Listen to the way that I play it here. Ready? Hear that? So what was that, right? Just slides, right? What's that? What that feels like is like you know how those like memes that have Siri or whomever reading it? It's like, this lady did this thing, it's like it sounds like a computer reading it. You can tell it's a computer because it's like it lacks certain inflections. If you play and you're just, it's like, dude, it feels like a computer could do better. But if you, or like that, feels so much better. Right? You hear the person behind it. You can apply that. Don't overdo it, obviously. But when you're playing, listen for what you can add to make it like just speak. You know what I'm saying? Like, because that makes a difference too. Like, I'm playing one note, but if a jazz master insane guy just goes like this, I'm gonna feel like, oh, he's not that good at bass. But if like a kid that only knows how to play B was like, I'd be like, that dude's so good at bass, but he knows one note, right? Anyways, sorry. All that to say, it's more than just playing a single note. Sliding in, sliding out, bass slides, rhythmic taps. Oh, that is so helpful. Let's see. Here's a song for you. I got these tracks ready. That's right. Let's see. Taps. Let's see. So this is Mighty Fortress. So the bass part there is. Based on however you want to do it. But if I just versus a, you hear that da, da, ba, you know what I'm saying? Like versus a, just playing the single notes. It's like it's just not as doing as much, So let's play. So this is without those taps. It's just missing so much. Like I could do a lot more with adding just da, 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 da. So like seeing where it's appropriate, adding little, like a I'm adding like a even between versus like a, so obviously that's ways to make it more busy. And while that can be helpful in some situations, that can also be a distraction in other situations. So like being really careful and thinking through how can I make this fit well. So that even goes with the last thing is like rhythmically learning how to make it fit. So we'll talk about that when we get to that. Bass taps, rhythm taps, good. Bass slides. Going into sections. Oh, this can be so helpful. Say like we're doing, so this is the intro, it's in B, right? And then we're starting the song. That I wouldn't fire somebody for that, right? But if we were doing that again, you know what I'm saying? Like, whoa! Like the slides going into it, like that can make a huge difference. Or where like they do it like if they did or like that can feel really big. Cool. Bass slides, also helpful. Learning when to go up versus down, whatever. When you're doing a bass slide, you're not like hitting a note and then going. You're not like, you're just, you start the slide as you hit it. So, so it doesn't really have a starting place. It's like nah, there it is, nothing into it. Versus like a doo-doo, so I don't need to be conscious of wherever I'm going. Like say we're in G. Same as going to B. It doesn't really matter where you start. Then the same thing as when you're going up. You don't really hear what I'm starting. It's not like, or it's just, you know what I'm saying? So even keeping that in mind is big. Practicing that too is so fun. Like just, I know a guy who just like always loves to. You know what I'm saying? It's like, dude, that's too much. So be conscious of how much is appropriate and how much is needed and helpful. That's big. Okay, clear transitions. This is another big thing. If you're finishing a song, say we're doing Living Hope, and you want it to end, and you want to make it an epic ending. Like you can kill the vibe. Oh God, you are my living hope. You know what I'm saying? Like, where did it go? Where did it go? Versus my living hope. And then I would like slowly bring your palm over. Right? You landed the plane. You didn't just like, boom! Or versus if you have your volume, like a single P bass volume up, or I've got two here, so I have to work both of them, which isn't too bad, but you get used to it. So, my living hope. Right? And so that was a little bit more, Sometimes your pots may crack and pop, so then that's where you use your palm. Super helpful. Because it's hard, otherwise you just let go of it, and then it just dies. You're just like, oh. So, fading out nicely. Big, 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 big. Swelling in. Here's another thing. If I turn off my volume and and say we're finishing Jesus You Alone, so and then it ends, Jesus You Alone. Like, in the right setting, like if it was like, Jesus You Alone, that would work. But if it's like, Jesus You Alone, like that would be out of place. So what you do is you turn off your volume, Jesus You, pluck it, then swell it in. Does that make sense? That can get really powerful. But it's also big in the house, so making sure you use it wisely. So like, you heard me, I I just wrecked those two notes, but so that I know it sustains long enough to, obviously I'm not gonna or it'd be way too much, but like, Jesus You alone, and then fade it out. You know what I'm saying? Swelling in, swelling out. Super helpful in the right time. Very good. So that's 6 clean transitions. Sometimes when you're getting into a song, say the band was like coming in and they're like, what's up? How's it going, everybody? You can swell it in and let's go, let's worship the Lord. Yeah, 2, 3, 4, 2. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. Swelling in the beginning of songs too is helpful. Okay. Last thing, number 7, listening to the band. Listening to the band. You can tell an experienced and also a proficient instrumentalist when they're listening. They're listening, and that guy's doing one thing. I don't want to step on his toes, so let me adjust what I practiced to make that happen. You know what I'm saying? Like some people, when you know how we have like the in-ears and stuff, when we can turn people on. Some people, if they're playing bass, all they'll turn on is the kick, and then they'll leave out guitar, keys, acoustic guitar. They're in their own world. I don't need to worry about them. But if the guitar and the bassist are doing really similar rhythmic things, it could just sound like, ugh, what's happening, right? Like, you're not going to want to, like a football team who's doing a play, you're going to want this guy over here to know what that guy is doing so they don't run into each other, right? But if that's an intentional, like they're working as a team, he sees what that guy's doing and he adjusts. This guy sees what that guy's doing and he adjusts, right? When we're working as a band, you want to make sure that you hear the team and you know where to make your instrument fit, right? Even if the keyboardist is doing something, like the keyboards usually should get out of the way of the bass, right? But then the bass shouldn't get in the way of the keys and the electric guitar. Okay, sorry. So listening. And then that also applies with rhythm. So if, say we've got like, we're doing the great things, second verse again, and whatever, like the guitar is doing something, like I'm gonna listen to that. If he's not doing it, and there's like you know, so like say he wasn't doing like a, but it feels so like there's a little gap there, right? If the guitar wasn't filling it with something like dun, 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 then I would like, oh, let me just fill it up, you know, and then it like keeps it from where it's not intended to be empty. So you kind of like, I'll just fill it really quick. If it's intended to be empty, obviously, like, be mindful of that and don't do it. But like, if there's like a certain empty spot that you're like, nobody's doing anything, you know, like we did Grace Alone this morning. So, you know, and then it does a repeat. Like that gets pretty repetitive and empty. So what I did the first time around going into the second one, and nobody was doing anything, so I just did a little, right? So like, you know what I'm saying? Like empty space. I don't want the vibe to die. I also can add a little something, make it spicy. So then I'll go to the next one. You know what I'm saying? Being tasteful, understanding what you can add, listening. If the lead line was still going, I wouldn't jam out like that, right? I was listening, making sure that it's necessary. Okay, so you can add things rhythmically, harmonically, and tonally. So rhythmically, I explained that with. Let's see. So like for that great thing second verse, let me try to see if I can make a good example. You hear that guitar over there? So, right? Too much? You hear it doing? Or so I'm gonna get out of his way rhythmically. If he wasn't doing that, maybe I would like jam out. So depending on that, rhythmically I might add some stuff. Also harmonically, what I mean by that is by the notes that you're playing. So like I can get really spicy if I wanted to. All I'm doing there is like adding just the notes of the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can go 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 7, 5, 2, right? Or to the 4, 4, right? So like. Yeah, you know, oh, that's back to the one. Here we go. So like, if I'm listening to the band and I feel like, it needs more, I'll add some of those notes. Obviously, I did the same thing over and over again. You know, or I can, so I can like, you know, or like or I like that one. That's a 1, 2, 3, 5, 2. So like if we're doing that into the 4. breaks, like that can be helpful. So like, the way to learn that, honestly, like go back, watch this video and practice that, you know what I'm saying? Like, or if you find a recording that has a sweet bass line, one of the bass lines that I really like too, so that was a 1, 2, 3, 5, 2. One of my favorites is a walk down from the 8. So it goes 8, 7, 5, 2, 5, or 1, 7, 5. And then from there, going to whatever note. But like it's together. Let's see if I could do it up here. So, you know, so like that's also a good one. 8, 7, 5, 2. Find your scale and work it out, you know? 8, 7, 5, 2. It's kind of just like an all in one little line too. So like if I wanted to get creative. Dude, it's so fun, right? So it just takes like finding where you hear it, pause that song, grab your instrument and work it out. So now that I know that that's a 8, 7, 5, 2, like I can add that in any song in any key, right? So then say we played it in G, we played it, so this is also something, shout out to my music course that I'm trying to put together. Say we're playing this now in G. So then I would have to figure out, okay, where's my other scale? So here's a G, here's a G also, so it'd be, right? And then now that I know it's an 8, 7, 5, 2. Oh. You know what I'm saying? Like, I literally just transposed the lick. Like, that's why, I don't know if whoever watches me play an instrument, it seems like I can just pull out whatever I want to at any moment. It's not because I'm insane. Maybe I know a handful of things, like cool little grooves like that, or maybe like a right? Like I know a couple of those, but I know how to apply it in every key, and I know how to make it work in every song. That's what makes it sound like I'm a real genius. When I'm not, dude, I'm not a genius. So anybody who's watching online too, like I'm exposed, right? Like you think I'm cool, I'm not. But again, it's not what you've got, it's what you do with what you've got. I don't have very much, I just know how to use it well. You know what I'm saying? So that makes a huge difference. Learn how to apply it in different keys by learning the numbers, learning the patterns as I showed you. Learn those numbers and learn how to apply the songs. Okay, sorry. Too many tangents. Harmonically. Now tonally, this is huge. A 3-piece band can sound better than an orchestra if it's put together well. I shouldn't say an orchestra. Then like 3 guitars, 1 bassist, 2 drummers, 4 acoustic guitar players, 20 singers, right? Like you can have 3 instruments, a drum set, a bass, an electric guitar, and then a lead vocal and a harmony. That can sound better, more full, more put together than if you had like a huge band, right? Like have you ever seen any churches or videos or where it's just like this huge team, right? Like to put that team together takes a whole lot of work. And you've been a part of orchestras, right? Like you've seen, to get everyone on the same page and make one sound is a lot of work. Everyone's got to put in practice. The person has to give them the material to have practiced. Everyone needs to be conducted at this, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a lot of work. So, all that to say, if there's a small band, say like you were playing bass for like a little church band that only had a drummer and an electric guitarist, like you guys can do a better job than if the orchestra wasn't put together well. You know what I'm saying? And it can sound really good. All right, so this was a rehearsal that we did where it was only drums. Turn this down a little bit. Right? A bass. That guy's having a jam. Listen to that. He's doing all sorts of wahs, like octave. can get more creative and more like active because there isn't as much going on. Then you add my electric in. Right, like this is 3 people, but it sounds great. Like think about this in a church. Like a church can worship, there's no problem, you know? Especially because we're like having so much fun doing it too, you know? So like mute the bass. One drummer, one bassist, one electric guitarist. That's 3 guys. I buy breakfast for the team, and it takes $70 to feed everyone. I could be spending $30 and have this sound. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't have enough space on the stage, like whatever problem you may face, 3 guys can do this well. So when imagine you were to go to your ministry leader and you're like, okay, I got a great band, but it's only 3 people. They're like, what? That's not gonna sound good. It's like no, you're not thinking clearly, or obviously whatever they're thinking clearly, but it's like no, we practice. It sounds full because everyone has approached it and added whatever needs to be added, and they can do that well. Here's another song we did. Just 3 people. So much fun, right? So what I want to try to encourage is understand there's so much that you can do to bring it to life. So, okay, now that was a tangent that I totally forgot where I was going with that. Talking about tonally now. So now say I took out all the brights. I took out all the mids. I took out all the treble. All I had is low. I put on my ultra low button. I took out all this, maybe take out my bridge pickup. All I've got is the beef of this neck pickup. What is that? I don't know what that is. That feels massive, right? This is a good tone that would sit well with, so right now my frequency is just the bottom of the bass, which is bass. But then I've got this gap, electric guitar, and then, vocals, right? And the drums are obviously everywhere. But this isn't gonna work as well as if I was to bring in the brightness a little bit more. If there's no keys, there's no second electric, there's no everything else, I'm gonna wanna add those back in. So I'm slowly gonna add those in as we play, but notice it doesn't feel as full as it could, but I'm gonna add those in as we go. Right, so it's a lot of bottom ends. Sometimes you want really dark. Sometimes you want to just all mud and just that's it, because you've got everything else filling in. But as those instruments dwindle, say we only have one electric guitar, we only have one drummer, no keys. Like I'm gonna want to add in more of the brights and fill in that bottom mids, then like, you know, kind of mid-mids, then like upper mids, maybe even if I need to. So being conscious of that tonally is huge too. But you got to know, you know, like I had to adjust and like I know what I need to do. If you don't know what you need to do, you're not going to know how to help that, you know. So being conscious of that and then being able to listen. This is a theme from last week's video from Brandon Rose, is think like a producer, right? Like, how is this working together? And like for everyone to be conscious of that is going to help the worship leader not have a headache and say like, guys, we're not working together, right? Like everyone has to have an awareness of that. Okay, so another big thing about tone. When you're playing your instrument, you need to make sure not only is your tone, you're conscious of it in your pickups, your tone knob, your pedals. Also the way that you attack your strings is huge. That's everything. If you're playing with a pick, the pick is gonna make it sound totally different than when you're playing with your fingers. And while playing with the pick, to some is a sin, I don't really care, as long as it sounds good. But you can, if you're playing with the pick, right? And like, so there's a song that we do, I forget what key it's in, but it's called Almighty Maker, right? And it's got like a, wow, that probably is gonna be really bad. But anyways, you hear how aggressive that is? If I play with just my finger, but you hear how much softer that is? Dude, that's getting really bad. Anyways, playing with a pick versus playing with your fingers makes a big difference. Also, how hard I attack it. If I'm attacking it really soft, right, it's gonna just like be just a note, just like a, versus like you're gonna hear it a lot. Like, so even if I turn my brightness all the way up, versus a, you know what I'm saying? So like if I, let's see, so let's play this song. So the chart on this is an E, and then say we're going into the chorus after this part, and then the bass comes in, and so you're like, okay, bass comes in, great, let's do it. And it sounds like, so I'm gonna put my tone in the right way, right? But then I play like this. It's like, okay, kind of in your face. Like that's a little bit too much, right? It's like that's not right. Versus if you, so I'm gonna lightly do it with my thumb and just barely hold it down. You ready? Here it comes. Woo! Right? D. Woo, bro, like the hands are going up, you know what I'm saying? But seriously though, like people get so much more encouraged when you like appropriately approach your sound. So not only is it your pedals, like I can kill the brightness if I'm still attacking it with a pick or my like aggressive fingers. It's not gonna make a difference. You're gonna be fighting yourself. So softly, I can even, you know, versus having one volume. So that's a big thing tonally. Okay, so in summary now, when you're thinking about your instrument, when you're thinking about bass, you're thinking about, I want to serve well this weekend or this night, whatever night you know your ministry meets, you've got to be a professional at low end. You've got to be conscious of what's happening rhythmically, you know, where can I fit to be a help in the overall sound of this, right? Like, I think when most people think of bassists, they either think it's boring or they think it's like unnecessary, right? You can play in such a way that it doesn't only make it super fun, but it is so encouraging to the overall sound. Like if we're going into that chorus, holy, all the earth singing, you know what I'm saying? Like without that, it sounds weird, you know? Like I would be like, oh, I'm missing it, you know? And so it could bring such a big help if done well. So make sure your tone is all set up. Make sure your rhythm is locked in. Make sure you're confident on where you want your hand to sit. Right? Like I think I messed up once in this entire thing. You know, just like, oh, I was just a half step off. You know what I'm saying? Like having the ability to confidently say that you're going to play the right notes is a game changer. Like I've played with so many people that are like, you know, like say we're going into that chorus of Jesus You Alone, and they're just like not confident, you know, and it just ruins it, dude. Like especially as a bass, you play the wrong note, you know. Say like I was like, where's an E? Oh no, like there it is, you know. Oh wait, what's the next one? Oh, there it is, you know. Dude, confidence. Dude, if you could just sit right in, hear that sustain. Oh, you know, and especially when songs get more busy, right? Even like the. Wow, that was bad. You know, that makes a huge difference. So, conscious of your notes, the tone, all the rhythm, locking it in, being a professional at, or being a producer in knowing like what's happening where, so that I can make the best fit with my instrument. That's it. That's all of it. So, again, hopefully this is an encouragement. I know that there's people that aren't in this room that are watching this video because we've only got one guy here at our church. We've got so many faces. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, hopefully if you're watching this can be helpful for you. You can get an idea of what you need to do to grow in your instrument. Again, if you're playing bass, I want you to take ownership. Take and feel like it's up to you to get a good bass sound in the overall mix of your church and your worship team, right? If you don't go to my church, you need to be the one who's responsible for it. Don't lean on your worship director, right? Like feel responsible for it, but serve God well. Remember that we have an honor, a responsibility to worship God well. This isn't like House of Blues. This isn't some like club that we can just jam in. This is the house of God, and we want to worship God well. So we want to bring our very best. So hopefully this is an encouragement. Hopefully this is helpful and like has taught you some stuff. But again, if you have any questions, you can talk to me obviously, but email me. Yes, whatever. Get a hold of me and write it in the comments or whatever. But let's continue to get as good as we can for the Lord. So there it is. Thank you for watching this video. Thanks for being here, Shannon. Yeah. All right, let's go.